Today I'll explain how narcissistic attacks turn you into a collective cleaning station, a dumpster for other people's emotional waste. Leave people who deposit their charge in you. Staying is dangerous. After a narcissistic attack, you are implanted with someone else's emotional load, or even a collective emotional load. Your body goes into shock because you've just been through an energy grape, sometimes mild, sometimes severe. You end up carrying the attacker's feelings, and if you don't deny it, you can actually feel their emotions and even some of their thought forms inside you. These are clearly not yours, they feel like little programs that were dropped into your system. We're taught to own what's ours, but be careful, when someone dumps their stuff in you, it is not yours. That's what a scapegoat is, a person who carries someone else's charge and pain. Be honest with yourself and look for it. This works like a life force exchange. The attacker renews themselves at your expense, they leave shame, guilt, and damaged self-worth inside you, and walk away replenished. Their narcissistic parasite needed that harvest to regenerate. This process is mining. Narcissists and narcissistic systems mine other people's life energy because they can't produce it themselves. Institutions, groups, and individuals can all function this way, sucking life force from people who don't know they're being harvested and binding them into the system. Think of it like mining a hole in the rock, you must fill the void with something to stop collapse. Narcissistic systems substitute that void with stolen energy. If you still have the capacity to create life energy, you will slowly metabolize and clean some of that charge, but only if you remove yourself from the source and give yourself space to heal. Stay away from those who deposit charge in you. Recognize the implants. Protect your energy. Once you've cleared the charge and rebuilt some of your energy, they come back and take your resource again. That's why the cycle of love bombing and devaluation exists. You're treated like a renewable resource. Most of the time this isn't a conscious crime by the person in front of you, the parasitic consciousness running through them is doing the harvesting. In the vast majority of cases, the people who harm others genuinely believe they're doing the right thing, they simply don't know what's driving them. When you step outside those systems, everything changes, your sensing becomes clearer and you stop being an automatic target. The only reliable way to avoid being possessed by that narcissistic circuit is to leave those structures as much as you can, claim your own space, and let in only people who are genuinely humane. You'll still have to interact with people, so build a deliberate protection, a false self-armor or energy spacesuit. Don't advertise that you're a producer of life force, let the outer mask say, "I'm just like you," so the parasitic system ignores you. Some people wear a rough, even off-putting facade for this reason, they look hard on the outside but are deeply humane. That's a conscious tactic, not hypocrisy. Back to the mining metaphor, the people who harvest others' energy usually work for someone spiritually dead at the top of a hidden hierarchy. You may not even know the head of the system, but the energy flows upward into that person or institution. Everyone beneath them unknowingly funnels their life force into the circuit, so they have none left for themselves. So be vigilant. Recognize the cycle, protect your energy with practical boundaries and an outer mask when needed, and step away from the systems that treat you as a resource. They need to mine that energy from somewhere else, so they hook other people into the hierarchy and the narcissistic net grows. When the network has many followers, it doesn't feel malicious, it's just abundant fuel for the parasitic consciousness. But when followers are scarce or the parasite becomes huge, it needs ever more energy and the pattern turns overtly predatory. The strongest life force producers, people who are pure inside and naturally generate humane energy, become the system's favorite targets. They are used as cleaning stations and dumpster bins because they can sustain the drain. Paradoxically, their immunity to full possession makes them more useful. The implanters keep loading them with charge so the implanted pattern can run them. The charge suppresses their power so it can't awaken others. To hide the threat these people pose to the parasite, the system must smear them. Once deposited with charge, they begin to perform the role the system requires. They look bad to everyone, to the audience and even to themselves. That smear is intentional inversion. These people are actually powerful creators of humane reality, and that capacity is dangerous to narcissistic energy, so the system keeps them damped and discredited. Because of this suppression, their capacity to awaken others is diminished. Yet when humane energy does leak out, it can wake those who are only lightly entangled in the system. People with lower levels of narcissistic possession can be roused back to presence. They may slip back into the dream, but they can also be reawakened. That's why intense narcissistic abuse is so destructive. It targets the very people who could undo the system by reminding others what true humane connection feels like. Some people briefly wake up and then fall back asleep. They weren't deep enough in the system to stay conscious. Others cannot unsee what they've seen. Once you've been that deep, you keep noticing the pattern. You begin to see more and more, and it becomes impossible to ignore. When that happens to someone who is genuinely good and creative, energy cords start attaching to them. The collective learns to source from that person. After repeated, intense attacks, you'll notice thought forms and impulses that clearly don't originate in you. They're not coming from one attacker or a handful of people. They start arriving from many directions. You just feel it. That's the moment the collective is hooked in. Every time you're hit, you receive more of that collective charge, and that load can be devastating. The influx can produce catastrophic thoughts and urges. It can push someone towards self-destruction because the content isn't theirs. It's the borrowed, amplified noise of the network. People who've lived this know exactly what I mean. This description will validate them. Beware, narcissistic consciousness inverts everything. If someone is still heavily polluted by that energy, they will flip meanings and distort my words. I can only speak what I've observed. Those who are awake will recognize it, and those still fully entangled may not. Technically, the attachment is wireless. You don't need direct contact for the system to siphon you. Once you're transformed into a receiver, the collective routes charge into you and draws life force back out. That's how the net expands. It turns life producers into reservoirs and transmitters, and the parasitic circuit keeps growing. When the collective is renewed, it's often because certain people have been turned into living reservoirs for the group's toxic charge. You'll see them at the margins of society and label them dysfunctional. But much of that dysfunction isn't originally theirs. It's your and my dysfunction deposited onto them. We treat these people as if the problem belongs to them, so our current fixes never work. In truth, the problem sits in the collective. These people are scapegoats carrying the burden. They usually don't know it themselves, and if they try to say so, they're shamed or accused of blaming others. Those who become heavily deposited with charge were typically opened up by people closest to them. Constant narcissistic attacks, repeated dumping of emotional load. Love and loyalty chains keep them tethered. The damage disables their ability to free themselves. Their abuser then appears like the protector with a big heart, while the true victim looks like the broken one. This inversion masks what's really happening. The dysfunctional person plays a crucial role in the narcissistic system. They carry the charge and supply life force to the network. Instead of their energy renewing them, it renews the system. That's why you must look twice when you see someone labeled dysfunctional. Are they a narcissistic feeder, someone who drags others into dysfunction and expands the feeding ground, or are they a deposited carrier, trapped and exploited by the system? Yes, a deposited person can end up pulling others into dysfunction because of the hunger inside them. But the origin of that dysfunction is the deposited charge, not the person's true nature. Understanding that changes how we should respond. Thank you for listening. See you next time.